We live in a world where the hazards brought about by the elements only rarely pose much of a threat to the population. Many of us lead rather safe lives, in fact, within the protection of densely populated cities and warm homes. This can lead many of us to all but forget how dangerous our planet can still be when we put ourselves in its firing line, and perhaps nowhere else on Earth is this as prevalent as in our oceans and seas. Despite modern technology and the comfort it brings about, the vast oceans of planet Earth are still deadly, relatively unknown environments that can make short work of an unprepared human or unlucky vessel. Unfortunately, recent events surrounding Saga Shipping and one of their cruise liners has brought this information once again to the forefront of our minds. Today, we will be taking a look at a very recent disaster, one that sadly proved fatal for one and extremely dangerous for over 100 others. Sit back and relax as we set sail to explore the 2023 Saga Cruise Ship incident and the ultimate effects on its passengers and crew in another episode of Maritime Mishaps. Saga Shipping, otherwise known as Saga Cruises, is a cruise line company that operates primarily out of Folkestone, England. Founded in 1997 when the company purchased their first ship, later renamed from Gripsholm to Saga Rose, they were quick to acquire additional vessels throughout the course of the late 90s and early 2000s. The company was quick to grow to a larger size across the next 10 years, taking on more vessels and even opening a sub-company under the name Spirit of Adventure, which saw a titular ship take passengers throughout the Atlantic and Mediterranean. Currently, 4 main cruise ships and several smaller vessels operate within Saga's fleet. These include the Spirit of Discovery, the Spirit of Adventure, the Spirit of the Rhine, and the Spirit of the Danube. 6 further vessels have been acquired and are currently in the process of becoming seaworthy, which, if all goes to plan, may mean great success for Saga going forward. Currently, tourists can book a series of holidays with Saga and can travel primarily throughout the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Cruises that traverse the Canary Islands, Caribbean, and Mediterranean are a specialty, whereas other tours take customers to the waters and coastal cities of Northern Europe, the British coastline, Scandinavia, North Africa, and more, including selected trips through the rivers of Europe. The company exclusively advertises tours for those aged 50 and above, and each ship is decked out in luxurious style. The Spirit of the Douro, for example, a river cruise ship that took its maiden voyage in 2017, features a deck for relaxing on loungers in the sun, pool facilities, viewing points of the surrounding waters and riverbanks, and rooms furnished with modern facilities and equipment. On the morning of November 4th, 2023, the Spirit of Discovery, one of Saga's main vessels that took its maiden voyage in 2019, set sail along the Bay of Biscay to return to its destination in Portsmouth, Hampshire, UK. The vessel had been on a routine tour around the coastlines of Western Europe, and all appeared to be running smoothly until a few nights prior when poor weather struck the coastlines of Spain. The initial plan was to stop over in Las Palmas de Gran Canaria on the way back to England from Fuerteventura, but high winds and tall waves put a spanner in the works, resulting in the ship rerouting to La Corona, Spain, where the port at Las Palmas closed. The next day, the ship left Las Palmas de Gran Canaria with a view to returning straight back to the UK. 943 passengers, along with 503 crew members, accompanied it, after spending a night taking refuge from the heavy winds and rain. When the ship departed, the weather was looking much clearer than the night before, which saw force 11 winds and a sea state of 8 batter the coastline and side of the vessel as it rocked along the waves. For the first few hours, it was plain sailing, so to speak. The vessel had left port and had reached the Bay of Biscay, along France's western shores. At around 12:30 in the afternoon, however, the poor weather from the night before had made a reappearance, and the boat was soon traveling in unsteady waters. As the wind and waves began to swell up and hammer against the side of the vessel once more, the Spirit of Discovery lost propulsion and began to rock violently against the peaks of the tall waves that relentlessly bashed against the hull. This was noticed by the passengers on board the ship, who photographed the scenes of turmoil within the lower decks. Furniture had been displaced by the rocking of the boat, sending books flying from their shelves and glass shattering from external windows. This was only the beginning of a terrifying ordeal that would last until the early hours of the following morning. Throughout this time, the winds and waves would not relent, and the passengers and crew on board the Spirit of Discovery were in very real danger. Throughout the hours of tumultuous travel and fierce weather, over 100 people were injured. The weather threw items and furniture around the rooms inside the ship, resulting in people being struck by heavy objects. On top of this, passengers would likely have collided with walls and surfaces which, given the fact that Saga only advertises to individuals over the age of 50, would have been extremely dangerous. Passengers, many of whom were confined to their cabins for safety throughout the stormy weather, have told the media how they heard crew members speaking over the ship's intercom, sounding scared of the impending disaster. This is thought to have created a surge of panic throughout the ship, and several individuals began writing letters to loved ones as they held onto furniture and their rooms for protection. Of the 100 that were injured, 8 of them suffered serious wounds caused by the movement of the ship, and one unfortunate passenger would later tragically lose their life after being taken directly to hospital when leaving the cruise. When the vessel finally arrived in Portsmouth after many arduous hours for the individuals on board, emergency services were quick on the scene, and those who needed medical attention were treated promptly. An investigation from the Marine Accident Investigation Branch has only recently been launched to determine the exact cause of the incident's severity, and a report will be imminently issued, allowing for more information about this tragedy to be revealed. An official statement from a Saga representative said, "Our thoughts and deepest sympathies remain with the family of our guest, who died following the storm in the Bay of Biscay last year. We are continuing to work with the Marine Accident Investigation Branch, supporting their investigation. All customers were issued with a full refund for damages caused by the incident." So you might be wondering, are storms actually that dangerous for cruise ships? The waves that smashed against the coastline of the Spirit of Discovery across the Bay of Biscay were 30 feet tall at their highest. Repeatedly colliding with the hull of the vessel, these waves were enough to physically rock the ship hard, resulting in furniture and heavy items within the decks of the vessel move around and collide with one another. While this can spell disaster to the people inside the ship if proper safety action is not taken fast, the actual vessel itself was not in danger of sinking throughout the storm. And while sinking technically can happen, it would take a particularly dangerous and severe storm to actually sink a ship without any additional factors. Cruise ships are typically massive, purposefully designed to transport a very large number of people while still remaining open and spacious for those on board. All modern cruise liners are equipped with a variety of safety precautions, and incidents like this are rare, but still can and do happen occasionally. Ship crews will plan routes to avoid the worst of poor weather, opting to stay in port entirely if there is no safe course. Many cruise ships have immensely thick hulls, crafted from fine steel to absorb the impact a large wave might have on the passengers within. Earthing systems on board protect the ship and its occupants from lightning strikes that may occur within storms, and crew members will all be trained on what to do during an emergency. Health and safety precautions, as well as basic medical practice, ensure that events as severe as this one happen only very rarely. Most storms will be passed through without issue when sailing on board a cruise ship, and typically, health and safety procedures will mitigate any potential emergencies. passengers will typically be asked to stay within their rooms so they can be safe and accounted for, which usually means that the most severe injuries are cases of nasty seasickness. Outdoor decks and leisure facilities are usually off limits if a storm is showing signs of rocking a boat or causing damage to the ship, and only rarely do disasters like this occur. The report that is being produced from the investigation into the incident will likely tell us more about what happened here and why. While the idea of sailing through a storm can be an intimidating one, it is important to remember that the vast majority of cruise trips go off without a hitch. Very rarely do incidents such as this happen, and it should not put you off to traveling the seas with a reputable company if you wish to do so. In fact, within the last 50 years, only 11 cruise ship liners have fully sunk into the ocean whilst traveling the seas. When you consider the vast number of passengers that board cruise ships every day, and combine that with the fact that the vast majority of passengers are returned safely to shore when an incident does occur, your risk of dying on board a sinking cruise ship is somewhere in the region of 1 in 5 million. As tragic as this tale is, don't let it stop you from exploring.